Hello, hello. My name is Mel or Marie-Ève if you know how to speak French. But, you can just call me Mel. Or Z, depending from where you know me from the internet. And I'm here again to do more fun streaming on Toon Boom's Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, or wherever you're watching this. And yeah, so sit comfortably, go get some water or something because yeah, we're gonna have a fun hour together and talk about storyboarding because this month is February. I said it right. Oh my god. February is an event that was created like I think last year, a bit everywhere in the industry. And yeah, it's just to encourage people to do storyboard. So even if you're not a storyboarder by trade, I am not a storyboarder by trade. I've done a few boards for like pilots in short films maybe, but like I'm not a full-time storyboarder. But I decided to take the challenge, and I'm gonna do boards mostly every day during the month, almost every day. I still value my mental uh, stability, so I won't try to do that every day. But um, yeah, at the end of the stream, I'm gonna post like the information if you're interested in taking part in that. But it's fun. So in order to do our part in this at Toon Boom, we decided to do a stream today because it's early February, and we're gonna do a storyboard stream because usually I do harmony, right? But I also know my way around this software. I might not be a full time professional storyboarder, but I am a full time professional Storyboard Pro teacher. So let me teach you a few things about how this works. Of course, I'm gonna try to monitor like the chat on like YouTube and Twitch. Um, so if I don't answer your question right away, I'm trying, and I'll try to keep a look at everything in there. All right. So what are we going to see today? So today, since it's February 1st and everybody's getting started and stuff, I'm just going to talk you through like what are best practices and what to do when you try to work in the software. Because since I've been teaching it for a while, I do know how people can mess up some things. And so yeah, I'm going to teach you some don'ts and lots of do's, and it's going to be fun. Along the stream, if you have any questions, like I said, let me know in the chat. We're going to try to monitor them. And you know what? If I don't have the answer, I'm going to find it somewhere. And we're going to get back to you somehow. So it's fun. And yeah, so this is Storyboard Pro. If you guys are not familiar with this software, it's one of the software that we make. We make Harmony, Producer, Storyboard Pro, and the Storyboard Pro is the one that we use to make, guess what? Storyboards. And it's kind of different than Harmony, but not too much. So the interface is the same. It's pretty fun. It makes less things to learn when you try to jump from one another. And how it's different from Harmony, it's that you don't have it like a layered timeline like you would in an animation software, which is good because then it kind of prevents you to over animate your board, because the goal is just to draw something and have it be a board, not a full-fledged animation. And the way it's divided is that you're going to have scenes and panels and sequences. Just before we start, also the lingo I'm going to use is each little bit of the board will be a panel. So that's how I call them. They're panels. And multiple panel creates a scene together, and multiple scenes create a sequence, right? So I'm gonna go get my vector brush right here. And the fun thing is that Storyboard Pro is going to offer you the choice to work into vector or textured vector or bitmaps. And since I'm streaming this with my poor computer, who's not having a fun time streaming this, I'm going to give myself more chances, and I'm going to work with a vector brush because it's lighter. So my computer is going to have more fun with it. So yeah, what I'm going to use is panels are into scene and scenes are into sequence. What you might be familiar with is shots, panels into shots into scenes, but it's multiple things you can deal with. Which brings me to my first very important point. You can go into your preferences, Preferences, there they are. And in there, you can change the naming of different things if you want to. So if I go to my settings here, the terminology style, you have a choice with animation or live action. So that's usually how you can change it. So yeah, I encourage you to go play in there and make it your own. All right. I press OK now. Right. So, what do you do if you want to do a board? Usually, one of the biggest trap that people fall in is they try to make a final product right away. So they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna go do my first panel, and then they try to draw um, their composition or whatever. So they're gonna try to draw something. Yeah, computer is having fun with this. This is great. They're gonna try to draw their character. Um, this is not working out. And okay, so the drawings will be very limited because for some reason my MacBook doesn't want to cooperate. But you know what? I'm gonna make it work. Okay, so let's say that this is my character. What we don't recommend is that you just start right away from trying to board full screen, like just full screen. Everybody, well, most people are going to tell you it's better to do thumbnails. So thumbnails is when you do a drawing that if you look at your thumb and you kind of press it on your screen. So I'm going to go ahead here and trace my thumb on my screen. It's going to make you like a small little thing. So we do recommend that you use smaller images when you try to do thumbnails. Oh boy. Yeah, this isn't going not so well, but we'll be fine. Okay, I'm gonna make this work. It's fine. When you do your thumbnails, one thing that I do think matters is your aspect ratio. Oh, no, it's working. That's great. So if you're going for HD resolution, try to keep your rectangle as HD as you can, because sometimes it's easy that when you sketch too hard, you're gonna make your composition into weird rectangles instead of having them be the actual ratio. So that when you try to bring into the actual ratio, then it gets weird. But it's very important to thumbnail. This is because you cannot put detail in a thumbnail. It's always going to be small and very, very rough, and it's going to be easier to work with, to kind of put in your composition. But now the problem I have with these beautiful, sexy drawing is that they don't have any place to they don't have any kind of place to be hooked on, right? So when you do boards in Storyboard Pro, oh wow, I can draw again. This is so great. Thank you, computer, for cooperating. And one thing that is very important when you do your thumbnailing is to always have a ground. So like maybe like a little grid on the floor, just to kind of situate your characters somewhere. It can be a grid in the ground, but if it's a shot like this one where we don't see the feet of your character, it's also great to have a kind of grid, but that is more in the sky, so that you show that your camera is looking up. So having the grid is very useful because it's going to show you where your camera is looking. You see, I just added a few little lines here, and it's so much easier to kind of know where my characters are compared to if I did not have these lines. Right? So it's very important to use a grid when you do your board. Super important. Now, how do you place your grid? How do you do your composition and your perspective and all that? This is another story. And this is another set of skills that you can train. And one way to train it that I cannot recommend enough is take a look at your favorite movie with very good composition, put it on pause, and try to replicate something that you see. So you can just use like a YouTube video or something and just look at it and try to just with little thumbnail, try to thumbnail good compositions that you see online. And one way to help you out in Storyboard Pro to do that, which is great because I don't need to draw to do that, you can go into Files and Import, and you can import videos. Video files in your project that you can maybe reference to. And trust me on this, even though a lot of people are going to tell you that, oh my God, copying and tracing is so wrong. It's not, okay? Don't listen to these people. It comes from like me and many other well-versed professional. Copying and studying other people's work is fine, as long as you don't post it on the internet as your own. This is where the problem lies. And always make sure that you're actually studying from high caliber, because it is true that if you study from things that are maybe less professional, you might take some of the mistakes of the people you're copying. So usually try to get something that is kind of like proven. Like, like usually with movies, there's many people, like it's been like peer reviewed. It's like science out there, okay? Like like movies usually peer reviewed because there's lots of people who are working on them. So but you can import videos in your project and you can work with them. So very useful tip. All right, I'm going to take a quick glance at the chat to see what's going on in there. I don't think we have any questions for now. No, I think we're all good. I'm going to check the Twitch as well. Sorry, my throat is not feeling that great. Okay, no questions, so we're fine. Usually once your thumbnailing would be done, you would be able to move on to like selecting what are your favorite thumbnails. And usually, if you're working in production, usually you would have your thumbnails and then you would maybe show them to your supervisor, and then you'd have a discussion, being like, okay, I want to keep this has to go, this is not great. And then you can move on to the next step. So it's important to work in steps and incrementation, because if you start with a final frame and it's not right, then you just wasted 15 hours doing a drawing that you're going to throw away. Which brings me to another very important point in storyboards. One tip I got from one of my mentors out there is don't get attached to your drawings. They are made to be disposable. So keep your drawings rough as you can, because you're just trying out ideas. Leave the final render to the animators, okay? You're just there to try and find good composition and all that. Okay. The next tip I want to show you, because I showed you that you can import videos in your project, which is great. But when I work with thumbnails, one of my favorite things to do is use the stamp tool. I have my HD grid right here. So it's exactly a rectangle like doing my HD camera. And then if I use this scale here in my stamp tool, I can have many different like little grid, but like frames that I can post. So I'm going to go here and simply click here to paste it like this. And here I have a beautiful rectangle. And these are made all the same. So if I go here and I lower the scale, because I made them using the pencil tool, even if I make them small, the size of the frame is always going to be the same. So that's also very useful. Just like that. To make the frame super simple, I'm going to erase all of that to show you. What I do recommend is to just take a rectangle tool, and you can just like trace your HD camera like this. I do recommend using a smaller size of pencil, because when your grid is going to be small, you don't want the frame to be too big. But for the example now, I'm just going to leave it big because it's easier to see on stream. And then all you have to do, super easy, you click on your layer, you go get your stamp tool, and then you go to the white page menu here, and you do a new brush preset, which is going to make you a new stamp that you can use to stamp your little small HD grid everywhere to help you do your thumbnailing. Yeah, so it's very convenient and very useful. So I'm going to go here and just paste a bunch of them like this. Boop. And what I would usually do, I board like I thumbnail from top to bottom. I don't know why. You tell me. So I do like to board like this from top to bottom, and this is actually how they do it also in the anime industry, which is why Storyboard Pro, if you look at here, supports both horizontal boarding and vertical boarding. So use the one that you prefer. I know in some school in more in like the Western animation schools, they teach horizontal, but you know, if you want to try from up and down, it actually works really great. Um, so don't be afraid to try this out. And then this is what I would use to just like sketch my little thumbnails in. Because then I'm not sure that if I like one of the thumbnail, I can just take it and with the select tool. I'm very sorry that I cannot draw. I don't know what's going on with that computer, but you know, I'm making it work. I'm still teaching you a bunch of different things. And if you have any questions, I will still answer you. But then if you take your little thumbnails and you scale it up, you're sure that your resolution, your composition will match. So that's why I like to thumbnail with the right resolution already. Like that. All right. So unless we have any questions, I'm going to move on. So I'm going to check the chat as well. Yeah, so Shnu Art in the chat says, so long as you're honest about tracing and copying for the purpose of educating, it's all good. Exactly. This is well put. This is exactly what I meant. Thank you. Okay, and then the other thing I want to show you is how do you actually do your boards when you're done like thumbnailing and whatnot. Because usually my thumbnails, I'm going to keep them on the same panel. Like I try to keep everything there, and like people that know me are gonna understand that. If you zoom out, usually I have like so many thumbnails everywhere, all there, everywhere. So it's a discussion. I like to think that thumbnailing is just a discussion with either yourself or your supervisor. So thumbnails is great. Then if you want to actually do your board, this is where it gets interesting. I'm gonna press P to have a new panel. And by default, my panel says BG and B for some reason. If you want to change the default naming of your panels, it's super easy. All you have to do is make yourself the pattern that you want. So let's say that I have I always need a BG, A and B, but what if BG, it's actually not what I want because I know that I'm going to have a final BG after. What if, since I'm roughing out, I prefer it to be called grid? I can just rename it as grid. That's going to be my grid. I want a layer A and B. But what if I know that I have multiple characters? You can just decide to add one more. And that's going to be your layer C. I know some people like to name the layers with their characters, which is also great. So if you know that you have like 3 different characters in your shot, you can just give each layer a name. I do know that because of how I work, I always need like a rough layer and then a better layer all the time. So I'm gonna just use like R for rough underscore the name of my character. And I'm gonna do that for all the different little panels, right? So R, layer, something like this. And yeah, so there you go. You have your characters right here in your grid, and then I would be good to go. So this is my basic things that I want. Yeah, so I'm gonna go into storyboard. No, it's not. It's layer tab, and at the bottom you have set layer as default. Bam! And now each time that I press on the letter P and I create a new panel, it's always going to be the right layers right away. And it's so quick. A longer sequence with always the same characters, I will usually do this. And then, oh, what if I have another scene and it's like the villains and, you know, like instead of having these, I'm going to keep my grid, but instead of being like our root is going to be like rough, villain number 1 or something. And then villain number 2 and all that. And then you can just go to layer, set default, and change it. So it's super quick. And I don't know why more people are doing that. It's very useful. Though this would be for a longer running project, usually when I work and I'm not doing tutorials or very neat stuff and I'm just like experimenting, my default layers are always A, B, C, and grid. This is my real default that I use all the time. So I'm going to set it back to layer default, and that's it. And then I just associate A, B, or C to whoever I'm working on in that scene because it's quicker. All right, so I hope this was helpful, this little tip. And now when you start to work, like I said, I'm going to have my grid. And now just because I already had a project here and I want it to be clearer for you guys, what I'm going to do is take this new layer that I created and I'm going to make it its own scene. And this is a big mistake that I see lots of newer users in Storyboard do. They don't separate their stuff per scene. They just have a long scene with everything inside, all the panels. This is great until they try to do camera movement, where your camera movement actually is contained within each scene. So if you don't separate your work between scenes, then you're kind of screwed. So learn the proper way to work right away. So I'm going to take my panel, I'm going to right click on it, and super easy. You can just so like if you're sometimes I'm like that, I'm just gonna like do lots of panels, even though they're not the same scene. I'm gonna include them in the same scene. It's okay, everybody does it. It's just that after, like I said, it's very important to separate all of this. So you right click and you go to new scene from selected panel or panels. You can select multiple, and wham, you have a new scene. But what if these three are also another scene? Just gonna click on the first one, shift click on the last one, right click, and new scene from selected panel, and you see the colors adjust. My colors are cyan and pink because I wanted it to be very visible. Usually it's like gray and darker gray. Not a fan because I always mix and match them. So remember, you can go into your preferences and you can also change the colors to other things if you want. So you go to colors, and it's the scene group box 1 and 2. I always make them very visible colors. Yeah, because it's easier. And while we're at it, you can also change the default camera background color by going here. I won't change it because I actually like it that bad, but you can change it if you want. And so I'm going to press OK. So then this is how your scenes would be. And then again, it's important. If you don't want to have to do that, you can also go into the top buttons right here, and you have a button called New Scene. Boop! So it's going to create a new panel that is automatically in another scene. This is great. Do that. I always forget to do that. But now I won't. I will remember this because I said it on stream and I have to give example. Yeah, so now I have my multiple different scenes. When you want to draw the scene, what do? This is where it gets interesting. I'm going to go here. Like I said, very important, set a grid. Like I don't care what's going to happen in your scene. Yeah, so set a ground plane and a grid. So that's what I'm going to do. If you want to trace a horizontal line that is straight, you can press on Alt and Shift, and you're going to have a straight line, which is great to make your floor. Of course, if you make a straight line, it's going to be a like regular shot. Alt and Shift like this. But don't forget that if you want to have something more dramatic, it's okay to put your line of horizon not in a straight way, and you can do that by just pressing on Shift and then tracing it. You see how much more dramatic this is now with just like little ground plane. But then don't forget to add your grid. Oops, on the floor. My computer is not cooperating. This is great. Something like that. Oh my god. There we go. Beautiful grid on the floor. So very important. Even if your things are in space or in the ocean when there is no floor. So let's say I'm having a scene in under the water with like a mermaid or something, because mermaids are cool. Or a fish because my computer is. Oh my god, my computer is working. I can actually draw. That's great. Okay, so I have a fish here. I'm gonna put that fish in a robot because that's where fish belongs. So what if my robot is underwater? Then even if I don't have like a ground or whatever, you can, it's very important to at least put a grid at the top so that you know if your camera is looking up. This is my beautiful camera. Or if it's looking down, because it's going to change a lot of what your scene tells. Okay, enough with grids and thumbnails. I think you guys got the picture. So let's say that this is my grid. So you're going to use the same grid for lots of different shots, right? So what I do recommend is that you use the share drawing command. So that's what I'm going to do. Just going to draw my beautiful grid at the top here, just to show that my camera is looking at the top. And my scene is going to be like a bird flying. And you see the bird from below because it's cool. Your grid, what I suggest, like I said, is that you share it. So what is a shared drawing? I'm going to show you right now. So you can right click on it, go to share drawing, and then boom, it's going to make a little star next to it. So what does that star mean? It means that now you have a shared drawing in your shared folder. So if I make a new panel within the same scene, for example, I could just press on P. But then what this is going to do is just create an empty panel and everything will be empty. So, you know, people could be like, yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to go to the panel from before and copy paste the grid to like the other layer. But I don't think that's great because you're going to lose a lot of time doing that. Whereas in Storyboard Pro, you have a function to like not do that. So I have my grid here. And instead of making a new panel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new smart panel. So I'm going to press on this icon right here that is called Smart Add Panel. I'm going to click here, right here. And then it shows you your 4 layers. And then you have one that's called Grid, you know? So if you click on it, when it creates a new panel, it's going to copy everything that was inside that layer to the next panel. The other one that are not selected, they're still going to be ported over, but they'll be empty, all right? And if you use the code I've shown you before, like not the code, the trick with like creating your default layers, be sure to uncheck add default layer if missing. Because otherwise you can have doubles and you don't want that. I'm gonna leave it like this because I know that I have the same layers, but sometimes like if you don't want to use the same naming as you usually have, you can like do this and uncheck it. It just depends on what you want, okay? Then I'm going to press OK. And since my layers are called the same, I don't have any troubles. But if my default layers were not those, it would add them on top, which is not usually what you want. But oh, look, it's my grid. And then I can just go here and make a new drawing for my bird. So my bird is going to be surprised now. Oh, and I can actually draw this time. That's great. Thank you, computer. So, yeah, it's going to be a surprised bird. So I'm using the same A layer as before. This is important because lots of different features in Storyboard Pro are going to work along the same layer name across like multiple panels. So very useful. And then the reason why I asked you to share your drawing is that now your grid is there. But if you change and you add a detail, so let's say that now I don't want to have only a grid, I want to add a tree to that grid. I can just go here, give it a tree. And then in the next panel, the tree is there. So you don't need to copy paste constantly. I remember working in Photoshop on another production. And if we needed to change the background, we had to work with groups and copy paste stuff. And it was annoying, but you don't have to go through that in Storyboard Pro. So use the shared drawing. It's a very, very useful feature. And then even if in another scene, so I'm going to create another scene right here. I need to have the same grid, the same background as before. It's easy. You just delete this one that you had and you go to your library and you find the right grid that you wanted and you can just click and drag it here. And it's still going to be a shared drawing. So even if I add like a face to the tree because it's an angry tree now, you can go here and the tree will have a face. So shared drawing are super useful for backgrounds and for characters that you're going to keep. So we have a question in the chat. Woo! What do you decide to work on first? Is there a specific order you think is better, like backgrounds, character, etc.? What is a good order to go by? I think the best thing to start with is usually your thumbnails. In your thumbnails, you don't really have much room to make complicated background. But when it comes to this, like usually in your boards, it depends on your production and your industry. But usually in storyboard, this is not where like the final backgrounds are made. Usually they're gonna have like something prettier than that, for sure. But you're gonna have like a rough sketch of your perspective. So I'm gonna go here and make an example of what you would get. Like the storyboarder will, and then again, it depends on the production. Sometimes boards don't even do background. Sometimes they do clean background. It always depends, okay? But let's say that I have this perspective here. And if you want to know how to use the perspective tools, we have lots of tutorials on it that you can check out. There's one on my channel. There's some on the Toon Boom website. So if this is, for example, the shot I want to animate, it's going to be like a guy doing skateboard. Or girl. Girl can do skateboards. I used to do skateboard as a kid, and I'm a girl. Let's do it. Yeah, it's going to be a girl making skateboard, because why not? And if this is my the place where it's gonna do it, usually the storyboarder will like just put like the rough perspective line, and then they're gonna be given away to like the BG department. We're gonna make this pretty, and then yeah. So the backgrounds are usually rudimentary in the boards, and then you're gonna add like the characters on top, doing whatever characters are gonna do. So, oops. So maybe it's gonna be a. Well, maybe it's just gonna be sitting there. Here. It's taking a break and it's gonna eat its lunch because eating is healthy. And yeah, so very cool character who's gonna eat a sandwich with their skateboard on their shoulder because it makes sense. Perfect, amazing. The character is not too big at all. No, let me fix that. It makes a little more sense. There you go. So this would be like your rough, and then of course you would need to polish that, because if you give that thing to an animator, they're gonna cry. So please make your drawings pretty. I don't have time because it's already 4:40 and I need to hurry this up. But what I would suggest then, if you're working on your board, I would say first is make your little sketch of like your little composition thumbnail like this, and like this, and then of course you can like make it a bit bigger. Wait a second. Oh, sorry about that. I had a little bug. Okay, so what I'm showing is that you're taking this, and then when you're done doing your little thumbnails, when you're doing your thumbnails, then you want to make your grid. So that's the second step. So first step is thumbnail. Second step would be your grid in there, and then you set your characters so that, because if you put your characters usually before the grid, then they're not grounded. So I would say thumbnail, grid, character, and then if you have time, make your background pretty. That would be my advice. And then for once you're done with this, this would be like your rough. Of course, you would do your final drawings. When you do your final drawings, I do recommend making like another layer and perhaps like calling it like a clean or something, just so that you can order it. And then you can use the light bulb icon here, and then you're able to like do the cleanup on top of the character, like this, and make a prettier drawing or something. Okay, I don't have time for that, but that's what you would do. And then concerning the background, because I get the question a lot, when you work with your background, and depending on the production you're on, I'm just going to talk from one experience that I had working in the industry. At one point, the animation team cut onto the background team, so the background didn't have enough time to do all the background for the animators. So what we did is we just used the storyboard thumbnails like this, and they set the real perspective in there. And then all they did is they took the grid and then they went to export, and they can export a layout. And when you export your layout, you can export all your layers here from your panel. You can export them as a PSD, which is very, very great to work with. So at one point in our production, I think that was Big Hero 6. Yeah, we were doing animation and the background was being painted at the same time that we were animating. So very nice feature to work with. And then when you want to add more, then you would just go here. Then again, smart add panel. Nope. Smart add panel. There it is. And then I would just need to have my grid again, and the rest I'm going to press OK. So then only my grid layer would be shown back, and I can take my A layer, and then I can use like the onion skin to see what was going on before, and just have like another pose. Maybe they're gonna like stand up or something. Ta-da! So that will be it. When you work with your onion skin, if you have a mask behind your character, which is very common, you can take like this and create like a mask behind your character. Like this. Don't forget that if you use the masks, if you're in older version of Storyboard Pro, you cannot do this. But if you're in Storyboard Pro 20, what you can do is go to your preferences again, and you can go to, is it camera? Yes, camera. And then you can go to the onion skin render style, and you can go to colored or colored outline or original color. So there's lots of things you can change. And what I suggest you to use is the lightness as alpha. So now you see that my dark color is very dark and my light colors are kind of see-through. If I disable this and I press OK, you're going to see that if I try to see my onion skin again, oops, I didn't use the right one. Oops, let me just set it back to colored. There we go. There you go. That's what I wanted to show. This is a bit of the older one, how it worked. In Storyboard Pro 20, we made it better so that now you can, if you have a lighter color, it's going to be see-through. And if you have a dark color, it's going to be very opaque. But you do have to activate it if you want in the preferences, colors, camera, and then you use lightness as alpha. So by the way, there's a lot of things you can customize there for your onion skin. So I do encourage you to go check it out. Like this. There you go. I know I muted my microphone for 1 second. I am so sorry. People came into my house and I had to mute for a second. Okay, I'm good now. So the last thing I want to cover today for the last 10 minutes was what you do when you review your board or somebody else's board, which is great because in the chat we have Nicola Walker who asked, "Will there be a stream about storyboard revisions?" Well, While I'm not a revisionist, I am a teacher and I revise the work of my students. And how we use it, how we do it usually in studios or in school. Of course, there's many ways to do it, but one of the ways is to go into Storyboard, and then you activate the track change mode. So this is one of my favorite thing ever. You go to track changes, you go to auto tracking mode, and then if I am making revisions to my board, I'm going to use my revision brush, which is in the tool presets. If you don't know what tool presets are, we do have documentations, and I do have a tutorial about it that you can check out. But this is the tool presets. It's that little toolbar right here. And here we have a revision brush. If you click on it, oh my God, there's a revision layer that appears. And then you can just select, oh my God, you forgot the glasses of that character. So I can just go here and maybe draw the glasses. And you see what happened to my layer? Now it's in my panel, it's yellow. So it means that there's been a revision on that panel. Or maybe if I go here and I'm like, oh, well, this character should be smiling instead, not being angry or whatever. Then I have a modification here. So the panel turns yellow. Very useful. And then once you're done, you can go to your storyboard, track changes, validate changes. And then you can write what is the change that you want. So this is how I communicate with my students. Some studios that my friends work at, that's how they communicate between each other, especially when they're working from home. And, you know, sometimes it's a bit harder to talk everyone together and stuff. So they would be like, try to make a smile instead. And then you can go next and forgot glasses. And then like this. So then when I close it, if I close this scene and I open it again, I'm going to have my track changes here, validate changes. And then I can just go through the changes that my supervisor, my revisionist wants to do. Very important. Then last thing I want to show are how to make your little presets quickly and how to work as a team with a storyboard, because that is something that a lot of people don't really know. So I'm going to cover that as well. So to make the tool presets, super easy. And I'm going to breeze through it because we have documentation on it. But you right click to make your toolbar appear. So it's the tool preset toolbar. And what is a tool preset? Basically, it's it's like a way to mix a tool and a color. So you get your brush, you get your color, and whatever you want to add, and you can make a preset. So if you want to have a retake brush or something, so you can make a retake layer, a retake here, and then if I use my brush and my like red color, I can go to the tool preset button here, and I can make my retake brush, and then you can assign a shortcut to it as well. And then you can tell it to create a layer when you create it like this. And I'm going to press OK. And then even if I go to a new layer, if I click on my new revision brush, this one, I'll have a retake layer. So that's how you do it. So I hope that's what's helpful to you, Nicholas, and into the revision question. And the last thing I want to show, and I'm just going to breeze through it as well. So, you know, once you have your board like this, maybe you have like one scene to plan every other. Oops, I'm going to remove the audio scrubbing. Once you have your board, if you want to use references like I have here, what I like to do when I work with references is I like to have one panel either at the beginning or at the end of my board. I usually put it at the beginning because it's easier to find and it just doesn't mess up with my timing that much. And I put all my reference in different layers. And then if I want to see them, I just go to my model view. And you can just click on the layer and drag it in here. and you'll have your references. This is what I prefer to use for references, because I know some people are gonna like put their references at the outside of their camera. I'm not that much of a fan of this, because if you're zoomed in a little bit, or if you work on a small screen, then you always have to constantly move to see your reference at the outside. Well, I can just keep them here, and it's just easier to work with like that. So I do prefer to have them here. Then to work as a team also, because now you can always share your reference like that. I think it's easier to just share the panel. If you want to work with a team, you can go to you can have like what you're going to need is one scene that's going to be the master storyboard. And then if your storyboard is starting to be like 20 minutes long, it's a bit long to work in it, right? So what you can do is go to storyboard, go to file, project management, and then you have split, extract, merge, and insert, which are 4 amazing features. Split is going to split your storyboard file in 2 at wherever you are with the cursor. So if you have a storyboard that is like getting really heavy because you have like you have like an action scene or something. So at one point, if it's too heavy, maybe you're better to split your project in 2 different files. This is great because it's lighter. And if your storyboard gets a problem, so like if you send the file to someone and you don't, like you're working directly from your USB key, and then your file gets corrupted because you're doing that. So never work directly on a USB key, people. Never. Then you only need to fix like 1/2. So it's always good to split your work if you can. And so this is going to split it in 2. But if you have a 20-minute episode that you want to board as a team, then again, not everybody's going to work on the 20-minute segment, right? So imagine that this is a 20-minute episode right here. What you can do is going to extract. And then, you need to save before you extract something. And then you're going to see all your scenes here. And on purpose, I really gave them not great names because I just created random scenes here. This is just to show you how important it is to be clean with your board and to name your scenes as you go, because then you're like, which one is this? Which one is this? And it's annoying. I'm going to get that into 1 minute. But then what you can do is just decide to extract, for example, this scene number 1. I'm going to click on extract selected scene, and then you give it a name. So I'm going to give it like 01, whatever, like that. And then you choose where you want to save it. I'm going to save it on my desktop because I'm going to delete it after. And then, bam, you have a scene here. And then when you press, you can click here to have it linked to your project. And here it's remove extracted scene from your current project. Usually I like to keep mine in my project, right? So then I press OK, and it's going to extract. So it's going to make another storyboard profile with just that scene. And then if I go to my project management view, I'm going to see here that, oh, my scene has been exported. So then if somebody made an adjustment to that scene, and then I import it back to my computer, I would see that this little circle would turn, I think it's orange, I forgot, orange or yellow, something like that. And then you can go here and project management, and you'll be able to like merge and replace or merge back, no, it's insert. No, it's merge. It is merge. Merge back your scene, which is very useful. I do recommend, if you're going to work with that, the reason why I'm not going in detail is because if you're going to work with project management, it is mandatory that you go online and you read the documentation about project management, because it's a bit deeper than what I've just explained. So very important to check out the doc. And so I'm going to go see if there's any questions that I might have forgotten, but I don't think so. Okay, so no questions on YouTube. Let me check the Twitch. What to focus in speech heavy scene? You can do that. Yeah, okay, no questions except what to focus in speech heavy scene. You can. Okay, so if you have a speech heavy scene, I do recommend that you don't focus on the mouth. Actually, like the body language is way more important than what your characters are like the mouth that they're making. So always try to have. Then again, it's always comes down to the thumbnail. Always have solid silhouettes with your character, good thumbnailing, and you should be all good to go. Right, and I think that's all I had for today. And oh my god, it's exactly, well, almost exactly 5. So I managed to pull that all into 1 hour. Oh, I did forget one thing. If you go to your storyboard track changes, um, don't forget to validate your change if you want your panels to turn back to their normal gray color. All right, and I hope you had a fun time. And with this, I'll be on my merry way. And I wish you a wonderful month of February. And I hope that you're going to have fun boarding. And if you do boards or something, post it on Twitter. And don't forget to tag Toon Boom because we like to see what you guys make. So, yeah, have a wonderful month and see you later. Bye bye.